First of all, I want to thank the organizers for giving me the opportunity to share my thoughts using video. The growth of the IT services sector has defined the last 2 decades in India, China, and in other emerging economies. No longer content to remain a center for low-cost development and outsourcing, these countries have now become hotbeds of innovation in all sectors. Increasingly, we hear of reverse innovations, innovations driven by the cost considerations and the market needs of emerging economies, which are then taken to markets elsewhere. Emerging economies are becoming more important to foreign investors, thus enhancing their influence in the global economy. Between 2006 and 2008, the number of BRIC multinational corporations in Fortune 500 rose from 15 to 62. In 2010, the middle class in emerging economies included almost 2 billion people that spent a total of $6.9 trillion annually. This figure is expected to rise to $20 trillion by 2020, almost twice the consumption in the United States today. By 2020, the GDP growth in the BRIC countries and Mexico will be amongst the top 10 in the world. However, infrastructural and institutional voids plague emerging economies. There are hard infrastructural voids like the lack of roads, ports, airports, etc., which are being addressed by the governments, and there are soft institutional voids which are being filled primarily by the services industry. These services could be various types: information analysis, advisory services, aggregation and distribution services, and transaction facilitation services. These services form a major part of the emerging economies. India stands out from other emerging economies because the service sector, rather than the labor intensive manufacturing, have led its growth. The last few years have seen the growth of the services sector in China as well, and today the services sector forms a major part of the emerging economies' GDP. According to 2010 estimates in the CIA World Factbook, agriculture contributed 16.1% of India's GDP, and industry contributed to 28.6% of GDP, while services were estimated to be 55.3% of the 2010 GDP. At the same time, agriculture was 9.6% of China's GDP, while industry was 46.8% and services 43.6%. Research suggests that the growth in the services sector will continue in the emerging economies, particularly in India and China, with increasing specialization of production, rising standard of living, and accelerated urbanization as primary drivers in both societies. This sector is expanding across both classic service sectors like the telecom and services as a significant component of traditional sectors like manufacturing. The services domain is transforming due to many factors, including 1. The development of key technologies like cloud-based services, which will potentially disrupt the current way of doing business. 2. New opportunities like self-service, direct ticket bookings, etc., with mass adoption of new technologies. 3. Awareness and availability of new digital channels like the mobile phones. 4. Digitization of traditional products and services. 5. Digital commerce itself. 6. Creation of context-aware technologies and services. 7. Creation of Internet of Things with sensor networks and sensors everywhere. 8. Standardization and modularization. For example, the UID project in India has the potential to transform and modularize all government to consumer services. 9. Collaborative and convergence technologies. For example, the Kisan call centers today empower agriculture producers with up to date information on crop prices, offering a real commercial benefit to the farmers. These trends and factors are creating opportunities for new businesses as well as new business models. So, let us look at these changes. Business models that answer what if questions through modeling, simulation and visualization technologies. Lightweight business process workflow technology for lower capital investment and cost of ownership. Short cycle product development systems for quick experimental prototypes. Conceptualizing and developing frameworks for pre and post M&A activities through system integration of business processes and systems. Business intelligence systems that provide standardized and accurate information through mobile PDAs and social networking platforms. Forecasting models to predict seasonal demand fluctuations and visibility into inventory levels to place replenishment orders. Multilingual applications that consider diversity of languages and scripts. Service innovation continues to occur along various axes, and this impacts the following broad areas. Inclusivity, for example, the busting of the megacity myth that proved that majority of the growth in emerging economies is not coming from megacities, but from tier 2, tier 3 and tier 4 cities and towns. As a larger percentage of the rural population mobilizes itself to cater to the burgeoning needs in these small towns, new opportunities to serve their needs creates new markets for services. At Infosys, our core banking product Finacle has been extended to bank the unbanked rural population, helping us do more with less for more. Offshore services providers are moving up the value chain. As the next stage of this evolution, companies like Infosys that were traditionally seen as mere outsourcing partners for software development are moving into areas like joint research and co-creation of business solutions with customers. I already talked about reverse innovation. As a further development to this trend, there is a growing trend of innovation from emerging economies being consumed in developing markets, which were traditionally the sources for innovation. An example is the portable ultrasound machine developed by GE in China that is now being exported to the US and other developed markets. Another example is Mahindra tractors from India that have made a mark on the tractor market in the US. Bridging institutional voids is a business opportunity. Emerging economies are characterized by the existence of institutional voids. Companies trying to enter the emerging economies will need to fill these voids or to build an ecosystem of partners that allow them to fill it. However, there is an increasing number of companies that are looking at filling these institutional voids as business opportunities. Liang Feng has demonstrated this very well. It now has revenue upwards of $8 billion US. Ctrip.com in China is another example. Subscription based pricing models. IT companies are increasingly adopting a subscription based pricing model which turns software into a service. The same trend can be seen in the hardware industry also. Rather than receiving a single payment for the piece of manufactured equipment, many manufacturers are now receiving a steady stream of revenue for ongoing contracts. Preference for small value transactions and small volume consumption, whether it is in the fast moving consumer goods or consumer durables or even lifestyle products and services, the consumers in emerging markets want to deal with small value commitments at a time. They are even willing to pay extra for their requirement, but will resist large bulk buys and high upfront payments. The emergence of sachets as an SKU in almost all FMCG goods is an example of this trend. Providing financial services from formal and informal sources including microfinance providers, improving product replenishment in retail supply chains through pre-configured ERP products, developing systems for detecting spurious and counterfeit products, improving services in public transportation and education through wireless sensor network applications, driving e-governance applications through document management systems, developing local languages based micro-messaging and SMS based mobile social networking sites. These are all examples of a set of services innovations along various axes that impact a broad set of areas. The new services environment is also creating new expectations in the minds of consumers. The emerging middle class, which forms one of the most attractive market in the emerging markets, now increasingly expects world-class quality in both products and services. Companies are learning that compromising quality to bring the price point down is not a strategy that works in the emerging economies. Like in developing markets, concerns around data security, around identity theft, privacy, selling of personal data, unsolicited marketing, telemarketing are becoming real issues in emerging economies also. For the digital consumer in emerging markets, they are increasingly subscribing to the trend of preference for interactive do-it-yourself services. The consumer increasingly wants to control the experience on the products and services they are buying. The availability of products and services at the same time as in developed markets is also a new trend that we see. They want any new product or service to be made available to them at the same time as it is made available to the consumers in the developed markets. Infosys is recognized as one of the significant innovators and players in the services domain. We are keen to participate and collaborate in furthering the science of services. We look forward to increased participation from Infosys with SRII in furthering the science and vision of services innovation. Thank you.